Can you speak English okay, and yet you find it difficult to understand native English speakers? Can you have a conversation but find it hard to understand films and TV shows in English? Can you write an email without problem, but when you read a newspaper article or a novel, you kind of get lost? If so, then you may be suffering from that well-known malady, stuck at intermediate. Stuck at intermediate. You can't sleep at night. You feel nervous, anxious. You wake up in the middle of the night in a cold sweat. No? Okay, exaggerating a bit. But listen, learning a language, any language, is like a triangle. Triangle, okay. Lots of beginners stuck at the bottom and a large section in the middle trapped at intermediate, and just a few reaching advanced level. Now, my job here at Let Them Talk is to get you from intermediate to advanced level, from B1 or B2 to C1 or C2. And if I manage to do that, then my job is done, and I'll give up making videos and spend the rest of my days on the sofa, I don't know, eating donuts and watching Netflix and trying to learn the ukulele. So today we've got 26 words to propel you from intermediate to advanced. And these words you can start using in written and spoken English. 26, one for each letter of the alphabet from A to Z. And I'll show you how you can use each word with a definition and an example sentence. Let me just give you an example before we start this. Take the word confused. It's an intermediate word. I'm sure you know what it means. For example, I was confused this morning. I put the keys in the fridge and I tried to lock the door with the butter. Okay, no problem there. We might use that. Native speakers might say it like that. But you could use another word. A native speaker might use an advanced word, such as muddle or in a muddle. I was in such a muddle this morning. I tried to put my trousers on my head and I stepped into my hat. Okay, so this is just one example. So words that native speakers or advanced users will use. 26 words that'll help your speaking and help your comprehension. Coming right up, so stay tuned. Hello and welcome to Let Them Talk, and today we've got 26 words to take you from intermediate to advanced English. Now these are all common words with one possible exception, which I'll explain in a minute. So let's go. A is for albeit. Albeit. Now this is an extremely useful word that you use to show a contrast to a statement that you have just made. For example, he made a lot of progress, albeit slowly. So you have a statement followed by albeit, followed by an adverb or adverbial phrase or an adjective which contradicts or modifies the earlier phrase. And the beautiful thing about albeit is that it can be followed by just one word. You don't need a pronoun, you don't need a verb, just an adverb or an adjective phrase. For example, another example, he arrived at the meeting, albeit an hour late. You see, no verb, no pronoun after albeit. B is for budge. Budge, and this is a synonym of to move or change position, and we especially use it when we want to talk about people changing their minds or their decisions. So for example, we asked them to improve their offer, but they wouldn't budge. We tried to convince the president to resign, but he wouldn't budge. You can also use it to mean move something heavy. Hey, can you help me budge the sofa? So there you are. You can use budge instead of move. C is for comeuppance. Comeuppance, which means a punishment or fate that someone deserves. He's a dishonest guy. Now he's free, but one day he'll get his comeuppance and end up in prison. All those people who try to hide their millions in tax havens got their comeuppance when the newspaper published their names. D is for dodgy. Dodgy. Now, dodgy is a great word because it has so many uses. It can mean suspicious or bad quality, for example, or strange. For example, it's got a dodgy haircut. This dodgy haircut. It's a dodgy man waiting outside. My position in this company is a bit dodgy. I might lose my job any minute. E is for to egg on. To egg on. Now, you all know what an egg is, but to egg on is a phrasal verb meaning to encourage, but in a bad way. We could also say to incite. For example, the accused would never normally steal anything, but his so-called friends egged him on. It was a case of peer pressure, Your Honour. Look, I don't want to take any drugs. Stop egging me on. By the way, egg on doesn't have anything to do with eggs. It comes from an old Norse word, eggja. I'm not sure I'm pronouncing that right, which means to incite. And it's been in the English language since around 1200. F is for flustered. Flustered, which means to be confused and nervous at the same time. I always get flustered when lots of people are asking me lots of questions at the same time. I was getting flustered because my train was delayed and I thought I would miss my flight. G is for galore. Galore. Isn't that a beautiful word? Galore. And galore comes from Scottish Gaelic. There aren't many words in the English language from Gaelic, but this is one of them. And it just means a lot, much or many, but in a positive way. But the trick about galore is it comes after the noun. It's quite a literary and poetic word, but it's common enough, so do use it. For example, for my birthday, everybody bought me a bottle of whiskey. So now I have whiskey galore. Whiskey is also a Gaelic word, which means water of life. So whiskey galore is the only phrase in the English language just using words from Gaelic. I went to the tech show and there were gadgets galore. Wonderful, wonderful gadgets. Gadgets galore. H is for hullabaloo. Now this means a lot of noise, a fuss, a disturbance, a commotion. For example, on the first day of the sales, there was quite a hullabaloo outside the shop just before it opened. I just wanted to get a refund, but God, what a hullabaloo they made of it all. I is for inkling. Inkling. Now, inkling is another way of saying that you have a feeling that something might happen or something is true, an idea, even though you're not 100% sure. So, for example, I have an inkling that Jane might break up with Jim. Something she said gave me the impression that she's not happy. I have an inkling that Johnson had something to do with the murder, even though he denies it. Yes, indeed. I think it was Johnson. J is for jaunt. Now, jaunt is usually a noun and it means taking a short trip for pleasure. For example, I say, Samantha, do you fancy taking a jaunt with me in my vintage Bugatti this Sunday. I don't travel much these days except for the occasional jaunts to visit my family in Scotland. K is for knack. Knack. Now, knack means a skill or an ability or a talent, usually something positive, but not always. For example, you've got a knack for choosing the right moment, but it could be used to describe a negative talent. For example, you really have a knack for saying the wrong thing at the wrong time. L is for leeway. Leeway. And it means a little bit of freedom or space to act. We often use it to talk about a little extra or additional time we've been given. So, for example, I think we should get to the airport 2 hours ahead and not 1.5 hours. That will give us a little leeway in case we are held up in bad traffic. The deadline for tax returns is the 31st of March. However, they usually give you a few days leeway. So if it arrives on the 2nd or 3rd of April, you are probably still okay. M is for maverick. Maverick. This is a noun and it refers to someone who acts in a non-conformist way, often breaking the rules, but it's used positively. She is a maverick politician. She didn't join any political party, but still got elected as an independent. Detective Jones was something of a maverick. His techniques and his investigations were really unconventional, but he got results. N is for nitpick. To nitpick is the verb and nitpicking is the noun, and it means to criticize someone for small, unimportant details. For example, you are complaining because I use the American spelling of colour, C-O-L-O-R. Does it matter? You're just nitpicking here. I forgot to clean 1 teaspoon and you complain to the manager. You like to nitpick, don't you? O is for ooze, to ooze, which has 2 meanings. It can mean a liquid coming out slowly from inside of something, such as blood oozing out of a wound. But the meaning I want to talk about today is when we use it figuratively to mean a powerful impression of something. So, for example, she oozed confidence. He oozed sex appeal. She oozed charisma. P is for pussyfoot. Pussyfoot. Yeah, I know, sounds kind of strange, pussyfoot, but yes, it is a fairly common verb. It's a verb, to pussyfoot. Now, it means to tread carefully, often to take too much care, too much attention, or maybe when you don't want to commit to something. And it's usually followed by around. So the phrasal verb would be to pussyfoot around. For example, stop pussyfooting around and tell me exactly what it is you want. Politicians should stop pussyfooting around and commit themselves to one side or the other. John, stop pussyfooting around and just cross the room and speak to the girl. Q is for qualm. Qualm. Usually used in the plural form, qualms, and it's a noun, and you use it when you want to talk about having doubts or worries about something. So, for example, yes, I have a few qualms about moving to Dubai, but it's a good job, so I'll take it. I left her 20 years ago without any qualms. R is for readily, readily. And readily is an adverb, which means without hesitation or willingly. I readily admit that swimming across the river is not the preferred option, but the bridge has collapsed and we have no choice. If you let me keep the house and the kids, I will readily agree to the divorce. S is for spark, spark. And it's a very useful word, and it's both a verb and a noun. As a noun, it literally refers to the first flame of a fire, but not yet a fire, just a spark. And we can use it to mean a small amount of something, a hint, a touch of something. For example, when he was found guilty by the jury and sentenced to life imprisonment, he stood there without a spark of emotion. After working all night, finally there was a spark of inspiration. As a verb, it means to create or emit something. So, for example, he insulted his colleague and this sparked a fight. T is for thrice, thrice. Now, I said that all the words on this list were very useful, with one exception, and this is possibly it, because thrice means 3 times, but it's rarely used these days. Yes, we use once, we use twice, but why not thrice? It's logical and it's a beautiful word. So I'm encouraging you to start using it so it becomes much more common in the English language as it once was. So, for example, it's incredible. He thrice won the lottery. Yes, you told me that once, you told me that twice, and you told me it thrice. That's enough. U is for utmost. Utmost. Another extremely useful word that used to emphasize how important or serious something is, and it means to the greatest extent, to the highest degree. For example, I will do my utmost to ensure that you get the best deal. This is a delicate situation and you should handle it with the utmost care. I will do my utmost to stop Brexit. V is for vie. To vie, it's a verb. And this means to compete for or to strive for something. And it's usually, though not always, followed by the preposition for. For example, Jim has been vying for a place in the English football team. Let them talk, or vying to be the best English language learning channel on YouTube. W is for whim. Whim. Now, whim is a noun and it means a sudden desire or change of mind, especially one that is unusual or unexplained. Usually we say on a whim. For example, one day I was in a boring meeting at work when, on a whim, I walked out, got my passport and took the first flight to Fiji. And I've been here ever since, and that was 20 years ago. We had only known each other for a week when we decided, on a whim, to get married. Unfortunately, within a month we had broken up. Yes, be careful about getting married on a whim. X is for xenomania. Xenomania. Now we're on the X's here, and obviously didn't have a lot of choice with the X's. There aren't many common words in English beginning with X. Now there is xenophobia I was initially going to choose, which means the suspicion or the dislike of foreigners or outsiders, but it's a very negative word. So instead I've chosen as my X word xenomania, which is the delight and the pleasure of meeting strangers or visiting foreign countries. And yes, I am a xenomaniac. What about you? Let me know in the comments. Y is for yearn. Yearn. Now, yearn is a verb and a noun, and it means an intense desire or feeling for something. For example, I live in Paris, but I yearn to be back in London, my hometown. Okay, that's not necessarily true, it's just an example. I yearn to retire and spend the rest of my days eating donuts and learning the ukulele, just as I said earlier. Is that true? Well, maybe yes, maybe no. Z is for zigzag. Zigzag. And that is a line that has sharp right and left turns. She was drunk and drove in a zigzag across town. The wallpaper had a zigzag pattern. So, go out and start using those amazing advanced words and let me know how you do. Also, I'm sure when you start watching TV shows and speaking with native speakers, you'll start recognizing those words. You'll start hearing those words a lot. Okay, what was your favorite word on the list? Do you have a word you'd like to add to the list? Do you prefer donuts or broccoli? Answer these questions and more in the comments. Be the best English learning, language learning. Let them talk or vying to be the best English. Let them talk or vying to be the best English learning